Exactly 2 weeks ago, this channel put out a Cinebench R23 multi-threading leak, demonstrating that people should be expecting Arrow Lake to perform 15 to 20% faster than Raptor Lake when using reasonable amounts of power. And while some people seem disappointed by that, I thought this looked pretty good. I mean, it at least demonstrates that Arrow Lake will be competitive, or maybe even win slightly against Zen 5 in some, if not most, multi-threading apps. However, the research I did talking to sources in order to corroborate that Cinebench info, that also led me to getting updated info on what my sources were expecting in terms of IPC and gaming performance for Arrow Lake as well, and after talking to them in that same video, I concluded that I was skeptical that Arrow Lake would take the gaming crown versus Zen 5 X3D. Now today, I have more scores received by a source that I want to get straight to because they involve single threading this time. So if you look here on screen, you can see that I have a Cinebench R23 single threading score of around 2,000. It's actually slightly lower than that, but as usual, I am hiding the last 2 points so that I can protect my source a little bit in case someone could look up a database and see exactly what scores were got in testing. Now, this is an 8+16 engineering sample, and yeah, 2,000. A lot of people might think that looks pretty bad at first, but it must be noted that this sample was boosting to 4.5 gigahertz at the highest, and in fact, I was even told that it would sometimes dip a bit below that occasionally after operating for a while. So really, we need to compare this then to a Raptor or Alder Lake chip that is limited to similar clock speeds. And if we go and look here on CPU Monkey, oh, here's a i3 score capped at 4.5 gigahertz. Yeah, we can see that this is performing around 14% better at the same clocks. Although, again, note that technically it is a little lower than 14%, as the actual score is slightly below 2,000. And again, I'm just saying 2,000 so that I don't say the exact score and potentially give away my source. But also note that the final clock speeds for Arrow Lake, I am expecting to be around 5.7 gigahertz. So if we assume that this will scale linearly with score with clock speed, which Cinebench R23 generally does, we can see here that actually we should expect the Core Ultra 9 flagship of Arrow Lake to get to around 2533. And that would place it in the ballpark of upper single digits to even lower double digits faster than the current flagships on the market. And again, let me note, I don't, at least right now, have an exact chart of the average clock speed that the sample I'm leaking today was boosting to, meaning that I could actually see it be a little bit higher than that. Like, what if on average it was actually dipping down to 4.2 gigahertz much of the time? That means that this would be a pretty firm 15 to 20% uplift in a best case scenario. Although it should be noted that, well, I could see a best case scenario where the uplift is, I don't know, 15, 20% or slightly higher. I do think what's likely, the plurality of outcomes to happen, is going to be much closer to that, 12 to 14, 15% uplift. And that's because I went to some of my sources at Intel after receiving this Cinebench score from one of my longest running sources that tests Intel products. And I said, is this what you would have expected? And if I put these quotes on screen, one of my sources at Intel, or should I say a partner who works with Intel, told me that they've seen suggestions of a 12% plus single threading uplift over Raptor. Like, again, a reminder, the IPC uplift will be above 12%, but peak Arrow Lake will not boost as high as peak Raptor Lake. And that's why it would place it in a 2500 to 2600 R23 single threading ballpark. Although again, note, like I've said in previous videos, this person does not expect that 12% single threading uplift or slightly higher than that to translate into a 12% or slightly higher than that gaming performance uplift. Again, it's the same with Zen 5. We have a 16% IPC uplift with Zen 5, and then in gaming, it just really didn't translate there nearly as much. Something somewhat similar is expected with Arrow Lake, although I don't know if it will be as bad as translating into gaming performance. It's just almost never one-to-one. Now, the other source that I reached out to is an engineer at Intel, although someone who hasn't worked on Arrow Lake for a while now, moved on to other projects, told me that they were projecting a single threading uplift of 13 to 15%, or maybe a little higher than that if things go perfectly, over Raptor Lake. And so yeah, there you go. More evidence that in pure single threading, especially when it comes to application single-threaded performance, Arrow Lake should eke out a win against Zen 5. And that probably isn't enough to translate into a pure gaming performance win firmly against Zen 5 X3D. Although I will say this, to me it feels a little bit like the evidence is mounting that Intel may be able to take the crown from AMD with Arrow Lake, at least briefly, if AMD does not have those X3D chips out this year. I do think Arrow Lake looks like it will probably nudge ahead of standard Zen 5 just that little bit. And yeah, so that is that brief Arrow Lake update that I wanted to put out tonight for you all. But now I actually have some stuff to say about recent leaks of the Switch 2, since I think a lot of people out there in their conversations online with these leaked renders of the console are missing some of the major points of my exclusive Switch 2 leaks that came out earlier this year that it seems to be flying a bit over their heads. And I think it's worth clarifying these things because those leaks seem entirely confirmed by this recent information that's come out. But first, an ad from a sponsor. This piece of content is brought to you by the Ugreen Uno 100-watt charger and 15-watt 2-in-1 magnetic wireless charger. The 100 Uno is an adorable charger with a unique robot appearance that includes a detachable base for easy placement in an outlet and then delivers adorable emojis on a TFT screen to communicate the status of your rapidly charging devices. And they will be rapidly charging too, because this thing can deliver 100 watts through both its USB-C 1 and USB-C 2 ports, being able to charge powerful devices like a laptop while it simultaneously charges something like an iPhone 15 Pro from 0 to 60% in just 30 minutes. And then you can add another 2 devices on it as well for a total of 4 devices with that additional USB-C and USB-A port. And the 15-watt 2-in-1 Uno magnetic wireless charger also communicates its status with adorable emojis over a cutting-edge TFT screen and is tailor-made for Apple users with Qi 2 certification that meets the need of a 15-watt iPhone and a 5-watt earphone for fast charging. And you know, all of Ugreen's family of fun charging accessories are going to be great for the new iPhone 16. If these products interest you and you want to support the channel, make sure you click on the links below, follow the directions, and buy those products if you find that you do like them. Doing this, actually, even just clicking on the links below, helps the channel a ton. It shows that you're interested in people that support Moore's Law is Dead, and those directions and offer codes below are going to make sure you get the best prices on their fantastic products as well. So support Moore's Law is Dead by checking out Ugreen's Uno products at the links below today. 7 months ago, this channel put out an exclusive Switch 2 leak that confirmed a 128-bit memory controller, the T239 processor that other people had rumored actually beforehand, but that this processor was mostly based on Ampere, but had some of the efficiency enhancements in Lovelace sprinkled in, and that Nintendo would choose 8, 12, or 16 gigabytes of RAM. Then, shortly after that video was out, a follow-up was posted by this channel that doubled down on Nintendo almost certainly choosing 12 gigabytes of RAM, and that the APU would likely be completely or almost completely enabled, maybe getting all 15 36 CUDA cores, despite a lot of people online suggesting there's no way they would do that, although the original Switch was fully enabled as well, so I don't know why that would surprise anybody. But another thing that I said that a lot of people were arguing with was that actually the Switch 2 aimed to go for pretty high boost clocks when it was docked, but then wanted to go way lower than people were expecting in handheld mode. And it's that last point that was leaked by this channel at the beginning of this year that is very important, that I think a lot of people are forgetting when they look at those leaked renders of the Switch 2. You see, I was told directly by someone at Nvidia that the reason AMD lost the bid for the Switch 2, that's right, AMD did bid for the Switch 2 and got very close to winning, but ultimately lost because their design underperformed or at best tied Nvidia's efficiency in the 5 watts, 4 to 6 watt area. See, AMD was nudging Nintendo that they should clock it in handheld mode at least 8, 12, maybe even 15 watts to get truly next-gen performance on the go. But Nintendo just did not want to do that. They wanted, sure, you can let the thing boost as high as you want in docked mode when you're outputting to a big screen TV, but when we're in handheld mode, they wanted the thing to use much less energy than the original Switch did, so that they didn't have to use a bigger and more expensive, but admittedly also heavier battery. They wanted this thing to feel kind of like the Steam Deck, but not feel as heavy or bulky as the Steam Deck. And they thought that would make it feel more premium, and also, knowing Nintendo, that would also cut down on cost. And so the fact that Nvidia was able to deliver nearly the same, if not about the same performance as AMD in that like 5 watt area, despite using a far cheaper node than AMD wanted to use from TSMC. And that is why Nvidia, not AMD, won the contract for the Switch 2. And that gets me to the major point. Yes, the Switch 2 doesn't have a giant battery for its size like the Steam Deck or certainly the ROG Ally do. But if you actually check, friend of this YouTube channel, The Fox, estimates that the battery looks to be about 20 watt hour. Well, if you look at the OG Switch, that's maybe around 25% larger battery than what is in that original model. So if you think about it then, we're still getting more battery capacity than last gen, and we're now using maybe up to half the power that we used to in handheld mode. The battery life of the Switch 2 should still be substantially longer than the original Switch. And yes, you know, it's not going to be as powerful as a modern console, not even the Series S while it's in handheld mode, but it's not trying to. It's trying to just like get by with like just enough performance to look okay on the go while feeling significantly lighter and with a larger battery life, not battery, but battery life than the Steam Deck. So it kind of feels more premium. And then when you put this thing into docked mode, it's off to the races and it should be able to loosely compete with the Series S in performance and maybe even beat it since it actually has 12 gigabytes of RAM, not 10 gigabytes of split memory, which I think, at least according to the developers I've spoken with, will be a major boon for being able to port games more easily to that console. And the only other thing I really have to say about the Switch 2 leak that we've seen today, if it is true, and let's be clear, I don't know the people that leaked this, I don't know if it's fake. To me, it looks like it's real, though, and it looks like it, if it is true, it completely confirms everything this channel has leaked about the Switch 2 so far. But the only other thing I want to point out about this is kind of oddly how much it looks like the original Switch. Like, I actually have a handheld-only version of the Switch here right now, and you can see that the vents at the top are in the exact same position, and it's very, very, very similar looking to what that prototype looks like, if the leak is true. I guess what I will say is it could just be a prototype. It could be a little simpler looking than what the final version looks like, but I do wonder if this thing does boost as high as I heard it might in docked mode, how it's cooling it. Because I would suggest that if you're operating around 5 watts in handheld mode, you don't need a fan. You could just turn that thing off and maybe it only turns on when it's docked. Or another suggestion here, I did notice something on the back of that Switch 2 render, a much, much, much larger kickstand flap with a little notch at the bottom. Makes me wonder if something's going on here whereby when you put the Switch 2 into a dock, something with that notch opens up the bottom and allows more cooling to flow through the device when docked. I don't know. That's complete speculation by me, but considering what I've heard they're targeting, which is like around 4 teraflops or higher in docked mode, I do have to wonder if there's something funny going on there with that extra large flap opening up and allowing more airflow when in docked mode, but I don't really know. For all I know, there's just a small fan in there that stays off the entire time you're carrying it around, and I think that'd be perfectly fine as well, although I would worry more about serviceability in that case. All right, well, that is going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure you hit the like button. Please also comment down below for the algorithm, and then, you know, please make sure you're subscribed to the Moore's Law is Dead YouTube channel. Subscribing helps so much with the algorithm. It helps us make it easier to reach out to more guests to come on the show. And, well, also, please consider supporting us on Patreon as well. We will be recording a new Die Shrink very soon after this video comes out. That should come out within a day. For patrons, it's just bonus hour-long videos with no ads ever exclusive to the patrons. We cannot do this without our patrons. But, you know, for everybody else, if you made it this far in the video, at a minimum, thank you for watching.